one of the most prevalent issues the people and animals have nowadays is that they can't digest anything because they have some form of gut inflammation, some form of IBD. Okay. And their animals have it too. And it's by design. So when your gut is inflamed, guess what it doesn't like? It doesn't like stuff going through it because it's body, you're trying to heal yourself. You're trying to keep that inflammation down. And that's what all the energy in the body is doing, is trying to quell that inflammation. So you put food in your stomach, you put supplements in your stomach. Number one, it's like, get this out of here. I don't want it. So that's why people complain about having to go to the bathroom as soon as they eat something. Okay, because it's your body trying to protect itself. Secondly, what you could say is that it's not being uptaken. The nutrients aren't being properly absorbed. It's not bioavailable for two reasons. Number one, because you have a problem with digestion. And number two, your body's saying, get this the hell out of me.
Welcome back, pet parent. If you have not heard of transfer factors, then you are really in for a treat today. I want to welcome Jason Donis from Vengeance on the Pet Parenting Reset podcast today. Jason, thank you so much for being here with us. How are you doing today?
Good, Jess. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super, super excited to have you on today because I have known about your products for many years. I actually learned about them through following Dr. Will Falconer, and I love them. I recommend them a lot, but I would love to just start out. First of all, if we can, because I know people are just going to be very, very like, what the heck are you even talking about? Can we just start with what the heck are transfer factors? Welcome to the Pet Parenting Reset. I'm Jessica Fisher, a canine nutritionist and holistic pet health coach. This is your food first, no fluff, integrative, small business, small pet food, small supplement manufacturer podcast for raising healthier dogs and cats with real science, real talk, and better choices. Hit follow and let's reset. What the heck are transfer factors?
Transfer factors, the easiest way. Let me explain this. People are familiar with colostrum,
Yes.
right? Mother's milk, first milk. Transfer factors are in colostrum, but what people don't know is that mother's milk has a specific purpose. When a baby mammal is born, whether it's human or animal, it has like a cheesecloth like digestive tract that the colostrum, which is like a honey like milk, it seals it and it gives it its biome, its information. It programs its immune system. Okay, so that baby is downloading information from the mother to establish its biome, its defenses. So anything the mother was exposed to, the baby is going to have a defense to, which kind of plays into why we even have many of the vaccines and medicines that we have today. It's unnecessary. So transfer factors are messenger molecules that activate natural killer and T cells. Okay. Unlike colostrum, that's only bioavailable for 72 hours after birth, up to 72 hours after birth, transfer factors are available for a lifetime. Okay. They are the power behind colostrum, and they are also, at a minimum, 80 times stronger. Okay. The medical term, scientific term for transfer factor polypeptides are dialysable leukocyte extracts. And what they do is they activate the natural killer and T cells. They're immune modulators. They're not immune boosters like many people falsely think. It's nature's first antibody. All right. Literally medicine from the mother. And we extract that from the leftover colostrum. After that, those babies stop getting the colostrum. The mother still produces it. But again, it's only bioavailable for the first 72 hours, which kind of puts a damper on the whole colostrum industry. It's a
Yeah.
big scam. Honestly, the companies that are selling colostrum, and everybody knows who they are, honestly, you're better off buying a protein shake because that stuff is not bioavailable to an adult mammal, period. The immunoglobulins and transfer factors remain intact. You could take them at any age. They are available cross species and they could literally modulate the immune system. So if your immune system is in overdrive due to immune chaos, autoimmunity, immune confusion, whatever you want to call it will modulate or govern that immune system. If that immune system is suppressed, not active or strong enough for whatever the reason, fighting something, it will boost the immune system. So it's a highly intelligent supplement that calibrates to your specific needs. And that's because it's from nature, right? It's not something that is synthetic. It's not a multivitamin, which is one of the biggest scams in all of the supplement industry, whether it's for pets or for people, it's a scam. So transfer factors, they what happens, you could take a maintenance dose of transfer factors to remain healthy. If you or your animal is using it to fight autoimmune or cancer, you're going to want to take 3 to 4 times the recommended dose for a period of time. And we've had a lot of success. Animals that are fighting cancer, autoimmunity, the hot spots, the vaccine induced lipomas. That's our bread and butter. And I laugh when I see these companies that come out of nowhere with a crappy powder or a cube that's dehydrated, with a few mushrooms and some vitamins, claiming that that's going to beat autoimmunity. And it's not scientifically possible. It's not grounded in science. It's just a marketing scheme. Whereas with transfer factor polypeptides, people can do their own research on and see that they are part of what is in a mammalian baby's diet, part of colostrum. But again, it could carry through till that is a senior citizen, human, a senior animal, and that animal could benefit from it in many ways. So, it enhances cell mediated immunity. It's going to essentially detect and defend against pathogens, and it will remember those pathogens too. So, like I was saying, once your body is exposed to something, it's going to activate your body's defenses to protect it, but it's going to remember that information for the future. So, that's why we call this product motherboard, because it's like you're programming a computer's motherboard. You're programming your body's computer, your immune system.
I have so many questions, but from what you just explained, but before I start getting into all of those questions and we talk kind of deep dive in that a little bit more, I would just love to hear a little bit more about you, about Jason, about how you got to where you are today. Like, what happened in your life that you figured all of this out?
I'm a traumatized Gen Xer, I guess.
I mean, isn't every
I
Gen X?
rage against the machine. I don't like any type of matrix. I'm positively unemployable by human standards. I will not conform. I will not go along to get along. And I started this company and named it for a reason. I left the military 19, and Will Falconer is a friend of mine. He's a co-founder of this company. But it was right around that time, within a year after, that he retired. And I believe he moved to Brazil to train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And at least that's what I tell people when they ask. That's not actually what happened. But
Yeah.
so he's a friend of mine. We remain friends, but he moved a hemisphere away, and it just wasn't possible to maintain that type of business relationship. So he still serves as an advisor to us. He still is an affiliate of ours. He works with us. I speak to the guy once or twice every week, but he was a big influence. But one of the reasons that I started it was, I paid attention from a young age that, whether it's world leaders or wealthy people, they were able to beat diseases that were killing your family and friends and your neighbors. I had a friend whose mother suffered for a decade with cancer, and we were kids, and I just watched her waste away. And I just didn't understand how, a politician or a wealthy business person could get the same disease and live for another 20 or 30 years healthy, beat the disease. And so I just started paying attention. And then I started paying attention to what they were doing. I initially thought it was money that can buy treatment, but it was knowledge. And that was something I always paid attention to throughout my life. But we were in the military, being that it's part of the matrix, part of the government, they wanted you to have vaccines, and I would find a way to trick them every single year, and you literally had to have proof. I'm not going to get into what I did right now. We could talk about it some other time, but I didn't like that. And when my contract was coming up, I said, yeah, I'll re up, because I really like the military, and I love my friends. I had a good job. And I could have stayed in, could have taken that to the government, because I had a high level clearance. But I said, if you want me to stay in and renew my contract, then I want to be, I want to have a vaccine exemption from everything. And this is a year or two before COVID.
Mhm.
So they said no. And I said, all right, well, what about a religious exemption? You could call me whatever religion you want. I don't give a shit. I want an exemption. You can do it for these people, you can do it for those people, but you can't do it for me. And so it became a game of chicken, and I was fully prepared to walk away. And that's ultimately what I did, because for them, it was more important that I was vaccinated than they had a good soldier or a good officer. And so I said, see you later. That's it. I'm done. And I walked away. And it was shortly thereafter. I had two dogs at the time, and one of them died. He was, he lived a long life, especially for his breed. He lived a long life. He was a Rottweiler, and he was about 13 and a half when he passed, which is, really, a great life.
Yeah.
But then I had, my second dog die, and we got a puppy after that. And that puppy had nothing but problems, and it died prematurely. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I was angry. And I remember when I'm going to back up to the second dog that passed away, the one before the puppy. He had an aggressive mouth cancer, and he was given, I think the doctor said 3 to 6 months. And they, first off, I wasn't going to do chemo. I knew 20 years ago I wasn't going to do chemo. I wouldn't do it for myself. I wouldn't do it for my animal. And now I know why. But I remember at the time asking the doctor when he said, you could look at chemo, but I wouldn't recommend it for this. I said, let me ask you something. I'm not doing chemo, but I want to ask you, how many dogs have you cured in your 22 years of practice with chemotherapy? And he looked at me and he smirked and he said, none. And I said, right. Well, like, why would you even ask me? But it was really the puppy that died at 4 years old, and that made me angry, and it really hurt me, and it left a scar. And that's I always felt like we have these experiences in our life for a reason. It brings out your purpose, and that is why when I started this company, I wanted to name it Vengeance, because I have absolutely no respect for big pharma and no respect for Rockefeller allopathic killer medicine outside of emergency medicine. That's it. It's the only thing that it's good for people and for animals.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, and I'm glad all the anger people got about COVID, I'm actually grateful for it, because it was a turning point and it exposed big pharma for what it is and big pharma medicine for what it is, which is an absolute joke, utterly useless in every way. And that's why people are turning to influencers for information, which is it's not a good idea. I mean, we can get down the road of the greatest threats to your animal, and influencers are right at the top. I've seen
Mhm.
some of the dumbest shit I have ever seen or heard coming from influencers. But that's what led me to start the company. That's what led me to name it Vengeance. That's what forced me to have our delivery system, because I said, look, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it different. The biggest, like, you take a look at the supplement industry as a whole, and I don't even like to call what I do supplements, because they're not supplements, they're actually medicine. It's medicine. It's not supplements. Okay. You're not supplementing your diet. You're taking my shit for a reason. You're taking naturally sourced, zeolite to detox or chelate, positively charged toxins out of your system. You would take transfer factors, okay, to modulate your immune system. And you're going to take boswellia and turmeric and glucosamine for anti inflammatory purposes. But we also micronized those formulas so they don't need to be digested. Okay. Because if you look around the supplement industry, it hasn't changed since the 1960s. They're still putting everything in powders, pills, capsules. And guess what? One of the most prevalent issues the people and animals have nowadays is that they can't digest anything because they have some form of gut inflammation, some form of IBD. Okay. And their animals have it too. And it's by design. So when your gut is inflamed, guess what it doesn't like? It doesn't like stuff going through it, because it's you're trying to heal yourself. You're trying to keep that inflammation down. And that's what all the energy in the body is doing, is trying to quell that information. So you put food in your stomach, you put supplements in your stomach. Number one, it's like, get this out of here. I don't want it. So that's why people complain about having to go to the bathroom as soon as they eat something. Okay, because it's your body trying to protect itself. Secondly, what you could say is that it's not being uptaken. The nutrients aren't being properly absorbed. It's not bioavailable for two reasons. Number one, because you have a problem with digestion. And number two, your body's saying, get this the hell out of me. So with our formulas, we micronize them and they don't need to be digested. They're absorbed as soon as they go into your mouth. And that's why people who use our products, the very unique medicinal ingredients that we offer, have immediate success, within weeks. It's not some marketing scheme. And oh, by the way, that's what the whole supplement industry is. There's only so many labs in this country. How many supplement companies are out there? More than you could shake a stick at. And guess what? They're all repurposing the same crap. Okay. And you could tell now it's a massive target, the animal industry. Number one, you could clearly see a corporate interest coming into the animal supplement space because they come out of nowhere and have an immediate presence that's proliferated across all forms of media, all mediums, whether it's print, whether it's social media, whether it's, SEO optimization or Google ads. They are everywhere. And you're like, where do these people come from? And it's real easy. It's such a scam. They put a cute pet out there. But we're not going to play that game. We're very black and white, and hence the color of our company. We give out truthful information. We do it in a very honest, authentic, and bold way, because I have absolutely no apologies, especially for, corrupt Big Pharma, the corrupt CDC, the corrupt FDA. I hate them. They're my mortal enemies. Period. They're not my friends. They're never going to be. And neither are the people who are putting that shit on the market for your animal. Because you know what they're doing? It's a profit driven industry now. They said, oh, wow, the animal supplement industry is worth billions. Let's get some. And guess what? That's what they're doing. And, whether it's the people who are, what is it, the human dog? I don't know, this new company that comes out that's saying my dog is a human, or some bullshit like that. Absolute trash.
Yeah.
Okay. Trash. I could pick apart a label in a matter of seconds, and it doesn't take much. Here's another scam that they use in the pet industry. It's pricing something between $29 and $39. That's how you know it's a scam. Garbage costs $29 to $39 a month. Our formulas, I know what they cost. And especially to micronize it, it's adding about a 40% cost to it. It is not something that I took lightly. I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it different. I'm going to do it light. I don't want some crappy powder pill or capsule that needs to be digested, something that hasn't changed since the 60s, some marketing scam, some white label scam. No, we said we're doing it right. We have our lab. We did not repurpose somebody else's crappy powder in a microplastic contaminated container. And that's a red flag. If you're buying a supplement that is powder in a plastic container, I need you to check yourself, because you need to learn about microplastics. Okay. You need to learn about dehydrated powders that you're giving yourself or your animals. Never would I give an animal or myself powder, for many reasons, from being contaminated with heavy metals, not being able to digest them properly, to the fact that they dehydrate you. Okay. Many reasons. Red flags. Those are all things that I would say absolutely not. And then the other one is the price. They want to say $29.99 or $39.99. So they could either say less than a dollar or just over a dollar a day. It's a marketing scam, and it's crap. And now you could take that to the bank. There isn't anything out there that I would give myself or my animals that costs $30 a month.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack there. And I do want to talk a little bit more about the micronizing, but my very first thought, because I have talked about colostrum a lot on this podcast, is there are very serious ethical concerns with making colostrum available to masses of people. And you were talking about how these transfer factors are part of, or they kinda come from the I wanna make sure I'm understanding that right. So there's not, but you were saying that that it's something that's there past that 72 hours, so there are not ethical can you explain that a little bit to me?
So what I'm trying to explain, it's not a difficult thing. They don't want to take time to learn anything, okay? And we try to educate people, but they don't. They want to be marketed to. Mark Twain had a quote, it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they're being fooled. And that pretty much sums up the supplement industry, specifically colostrum. Transfer factors are a part of colostrum. It's a messenger molecule. If we're going to use layman's terms, let's just say it's a messenger molecule carrying information from mother to baby as far as what the mother was exposed to establish its natural defenses and its immune system. Colostrum, being part of colostrum, it has more than transfer factors in it. It has a very small amount of transfer factors in it. So when you go and you take colostrum, when they're telling you it's going to help your immune system, they're talking about transfer factors, but you're getting a very, very small dose in colostrum. We only source transfer factors. So you're getting a higher, more concentrated dose. Okay. Secondly, when it comes to colostrum, it is nourishment, it's food. That information molecule that we sell is part of colostrum. So essentially, it's feeding the baby, it's coating the stomach, it's nourishing, okay, but it's also getting information from transfer factors. I hope that helped a little bit.
Yeah, and is it bovine that you're
Bovine colostrum. Yeah, some people, ours is strictly bovine colostrum.
okay.
However, there are people that use, or have used egg yolks in the past, and that's a great source of food for people who want to have sources of vitamins and transfer factors and all kinds of great stuff in chicken eggs, and chicken yolk in the yolk of chicken eggs.
Yeah. So, can you explain a little bit about, you said the micronization makes it more bioavailable. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, when you eat something, you have to what?
You have to digest it.
Digest it so that you get nutrients from it and energy, and your body turns that food into energy. When you absorb it, you don't need to digest it. It's absorbed through the mucous membranes in the mouth. Okay. So it goes to work immediately. And the small particles are what allow that to happen. So they're micronized for maximum absorption.
Okay. So, you talked a little bit earlier. I want to actually just tell I was giving it didn't used to be called motherboard, but essentially motherboard to my dog a number of years ago. And at the time, I was like, she's perfectly healthy. I'm just trying this because I think it's a cool product. And this tiniest little thing that I noticed made me like, my gosh, this is kind of crazy because so she's a rescue. I got her out of a rescue in Mexico, and she has always, to me, has always been perfectly healthy, always been raw fed, all the things. And one thing that was really strange is that I never had to trim her back nails. It was like they didn't grow. And when I started using motherboard with her back nails started to grow. And I was like, what is this? And so I know that's a tiny little, like minuscule little detail, but I say that to kind of one, say, like, there are so many things that happen in the body that we're not always paying attention to. But also kind of leading into, I'm curious as to what you have seen. What are some of the stories? Because I'm sure you have much bigger, like grandiose things that
I
happen.
realized when I was telling you the story about my dog Banner earlier that I didn't finish the story. He was given 3 to 6 months to live. I fed him raw. It was, before I knew as much as I know now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not too many people, and I know this sounds arrogant. I don't really care.
Is this
I know
a
more than
puppy?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I have a lot of information. No, 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 this is not the puppy.
No.
I actually I found Banner. He was my second dog. I actually found him on the highway, on I-95 on a road trip back from Florida, and he was running across the highway. It was right outside of Fort Bragg. It was back in, I don't know, it was like 2006, and he was hobbling, or I didn't know it was even a dog. I thought it was something else. It was hobbling across the highway. It was really early in the morning, like 5:30, 6 o'clock. The sun, it was still not fully bright, and I couldn't quite make out what it was. And as I got closer on the highway, I'm like, "Oh my god, that's a dog!" And I saw it run across the highway, and none of the vehicles were even stopping. This was in a very rural area on the border of North Carolina and Virginia. None of the tractor trailers were obviously not even slowing down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Holy shit, I gotta go do something here." So I remember nobody was around. I just drove across the median in the highway, right up on the other side, and I went across the highway, and I opened my door, and he ran right to me. And he was holding his leg, and his leg was snapped in half. It was a compound fracture, and I was like, "Holy shit." So it just instinctively, I grabbed onto him so hard that I'm surprised he didn't bite me, but he yelped because we were 3 feet, 4 feet from the highway. None of the tractor trailers were slowing down. Um, and I just remember lifting him up by the back of his neck and putting him in the bed of my truck. And I walked around the other side, still holding on so he didn't take off. And I remember opening up the back door to my truck and just throwing shit out and lifting him. I literally just tossed him in, closed the door, and threw the stuff in the back of my truck. And I started driving. And I remember pulling over to like looking at him, going, like, what am I going to do here? And I just said, he's not wearing a collar. He was so cute. He ran to me, and I just said, let's go get you a bite to eat. And I'm driving on the road. This is, like I said, 20 years ago. I just went and got him a hamburger and a water. And I mean, he just ate everything right out of my hand. I just remember looking and saying, he doesn't have a collar. There's no form of ID. I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere here. You're coming home with me. And I was like, that's it. So I remember calling the vet, and I said, hey, Doug, here's the deal. And he was like, I'll stay here for you. Cause I was pretty far away. It took me all day to get home, and it was a long day. And I got there, and he's like, there's no form of ID. That dog has been on his own so long that compound fracture is not a compound fracture. It was one. It's healed that way. So his arm was, like, crooked. He said, "Oh, by the way, you're gonna have to flea and tick bomb your car." Like, I remember sleeping on my back porch with that dog for a week, until all the fleas, died off, and it was a strong bond. So when I found out he was sick, I was motivated, and I gave him high dose transfer factors. God, it was high dose transfer factors, some essential oils, raw food, any type of voodoo I could throw. And I remember we would go back, and, he wanted to see him every so often, like every so many weeks. He was a friend, the vet was a friend. And he was one of the last good vets that I had any personal interaction with. And I remember the first time I went back, he's like, "Yeah, it spread to his lungs. It spread here." He's not in any pain, but, he looks great. He's like, his coat looks amazing. He's muscular. Just keep going. And so I took him back at 6 months. And he's like, "I can't believe this dog." He's like, "I've never seen an animal exceed 6 months with this disease, this aggressive mouth cancer." And he's like, "Just, dude, I don't care what you're doing. You're waving a fishbone over this dog. Just do it. Keep it up. See you in 3 months." I come back in 3 months. He's like, "You got to see this." And he took an x-ray, which, I wouldn't do again, but he was like, I was actually doing it because I wanted to learn something. He said, "Jason, I can't believe this." He said, "Here's this 3 month, here's the 6 month x-ray, and here's today. Where did the tumors go?" And he said, my colleague said it's an anomaly. And I was like, "Well, no, it's not an anomaly. It's gone. I know what I'm doing. I know it's working." He's like, "I don't care what it is. Just keep it up." Banner lived 2.5 years beyond that 3 to 6 months that he was given. So he lived a full life. If I gave him chemo, it would have wiped him out, or radiation. I mean, they're just massive money makers. They're never going to tell people that. And you can never convince people, because as soon as they hear the word cancer, number one, they don't realize cancer is a symptom. It's not the disease. Number two, they run to their doctor because that's what they were programmed to do growing up. And it's dogma to them. And they'll sign up for chemo and radiation because they think they're going to kill the cancer. and it never does. And people are always going to say, well, so and so is better, so and so they're in remission, and I guarantee you it's coming back. It always does. Okay. So once I had that success with him, and then I had my experience with my second dog, or I'm sorry, my third dog, Otto, who was the one that passed away when he was, young. I was getting out of the military, and I was just pissed. And then a year later, it was COVID, and all these guys are now understanding why I was fighting for that vaccine exemption. A lot of friends, and they had their own battle, but it was really timely that I got out and saw the writing on the wall and what they were doing. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, I think to kind of go back to what you were talking about earlier, and these huge corporations are, as you said, like they're capturing everything. They're capturing the life cycle of our pets. They have the food, they have the vet clinics, and then they also have the pet insurance. They have the whole life cycle of what's happening to our pets. So when I see a product like yours, to me, this is something that pet parents can take and say, I have more control than I think, than I have been programmed to believe over the health span of my pet. And to some degree, I kind of think when we do that with our pets, we also can relate that to ourselves as well, that we
They're
have
here
more
to teach
control.
us. They're here to teach us and to lift our vibration.
Yeah. Yeah, you said voodoo earlier, and I was like I wanted to laugh, but you were in a very serious moment because I hear that a lot, especially from people who are captured, as you've said, by the medical industrial complex, how whatever you wanna term it. It's definitely something that we've been programmed for so long to believe that we trust our doctor explicitly, we don't ask questions, and we just do whatever they say to do, and whatever they say to do is whatever the pharmaceutical companies have told them to say to do. It's
Not
really
only told them to say, but forced them to say, and they hold their medical license over them like the sword of Damocles. So if they don't meet their quotas, they get a visit. If they continue to not meet their quotas, they get another visit and have a sit down. And then if they start, speaking out against the industry, well, then they're going to suspend their license or financially fine you, start to smear you in the papers. Their medical board that they paid their shitty politicians to establish and to appoint will then punish you by, that's who you go before is the politically appointed medical board of your state. And then ultimately they will take your license away and leave you with no way to make a living. So you could move or, go find something else to do. It's corrupted. It's the Rockefeller medicine, okay? And it started 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago. And it was designed to be that way. We have an ebook it was out and we're going to re-release it in a few months. So if your listeners or fans want to go to the website vengeance.com and sign up for our emails, anybody that's on that list will get a free copy of that ebook, and it's good information. It's not a sales pitch. It's because I genuinely despise these people. So it'll tell you the whole history of how we arrived at this point. But the last person that you should be asking for health advice is your doctor. Okay. If you're somebody who asks their doctor for health advice, we're possibly just, not a match because I don't know how or where to begin to help you. Programming, you use that term, I use that term, but that's exactly what they do. People are starting to break that system, not the boomers. Gen X, who, was the wayward generation that kind of flailed around. Everybody said they did, but their purpose was to come here and break the matrix, ask the tough questions, do the tough things, push the boundaries. And, that's kind of where I say to people, start asking questions back. First of all, you have to know what the threats are to your pet. And we could talk about that. Secondly, you have to empower yourself. You need to stop listening to people and start learning. If your pet has a problem, it's your responsibility. And good chances are you had something to do with it unknowingly, and you can change it. But you need to ask the questions. You have a family physician or a DVM, an allopathic DVM. Number one, fire them. I mean, you don't need them. You need to find somebody who's a homeopathic or alternative or considered alternative. It's really, they were the practitioners. The alternative practitioners were the ones who were marginalized by Rockefeller medicine. You need to find those people because that's how you will have health. You will not find health in a doctor's office. You'll find sickness. The only reason you should take your pet or take yourself to a doctor is if you're sick or if you're injured. Why would you go to your doctor to find out if you're healthy?
Especially, I say this to people all the time. I'm like, look at your doctor. Is that who you want to take health advice from? Like, it's bad. It's really bad.
I mean, people don't understand how little. See, am I saying doctors are stupid? No. Doctors were people who were intelligent enough to get into a very competitive school, which is why they went after them. They were like, we're not going to wait until these people are educated and change their mind. We're going to re engineer their training. So they were misinformed, and that's how it was planned. They pushed out heliotherapy and herbalism and botany and chiropractic. They were part of medical schools and they pushed them out. They marginalized them, painted them as pseudoscience, just like they started using that term again during COVID. Anybody uses the term pseudoscience, you immediately want to find out what that pseudoscience is and learn about it because 9 times out of 10, it's something you want to use and have in your toolkit. People have lost trust in their doctors for good reason. For good reason. And they are literally running ad campaigns now saying, don't paint your family physician out of the picture. Why do you think that is? Because nobody wants to see these morons anymore. They're prescription pads. And then the vets who tell you if you want, vets are overcrowded. They have so many people. They can't take new people. And what they do is they'll say, you have to agree to biannual visits and vaccines, none of this pushback. And people are going to these creeps. I mean, it's unbelievable. And the people who have, some inkling that this isn't right, we see them in our inbox. They'll reach out to us. And we're like, hey, you got to go find some. I'm not going to sit here and give you medical advice. Like go find a holistic. I don't even like to use the term holistic because it's beaten to death. And really what it means is holistic. And it means that the only thing they're holistic about is your wallet. They want all of it. Okay. They take a whole wallet approach to medicine. That's what holistic means. So if you say to me that you have a holistic vet, I know automatically 99% of the time you think you have a holistic vet. Okay. It's an allopathic vet. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay. The biggest vet influencers on social media are frauds. They were allopathic practitioners who pushed vaccines, pushed spaying and neutering, and stole time from your dog and you because your greatest asset is your own time. Your greatest asset is the time you have with your animal that you love more than anything. And these frauds are out there profiting from that and then trying to tell you that they're all of a sudden holistic and they're writing books and they're coming out with shitty powdered supplements. These people are fakes and frauds, okay? Wolf in sheep's clothing. I wouldn't align myself with them. I wouldn't let them rep my product because I'm more intelligent than them and I put my life work into it. They are profit driven. The end. I am very selective with what veterinarians we align with. And there's about 3 of them.
I think that social media has definitely created a space where people can be like that, can really just use the media platforms to, unfortunately, like you just said, like trick people into believing that they have knowledge that they don't. Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast so much is because I get to talk to so many people and hear so many different voices and beliefs and talk to, as you said, like there are veterinarians who they learned allopathic medicine in vet school and something happened and they were just furious that there's this whole other world that they knew nothing about, but it's few and far between to find them. That that is for sure.
And the sad thing is everyone thinks they have one.
Yeah, even
If
the
you had any idea how many vets that we've known about, interacted with, I'm telling you, it's 1 in 10 that are actually somebody that I would say, "Yeah, they're not bad," or, yeah, okay," you know?
Mhm.
But, yeah, I could spend an entire episode on iatrogenic medicine.
Yeah, I know I haven't found one in person in 3 states that I've lived in. I haven't found one that I can physically take my animal to that I just trust wholeheartedly.
Mm,
It hasn't happened.
yeah,
But again, that's why, as I said earlier, I appreciate companies like yours that are putting out products that help us take back control of what we're doing for ourselves and our pets. Because I know you used to have human products. Do you still have human?
yeah, no, we're a
Yeah,
human
I thought so.
company.
Yeah, okay,
We're
that's
a
what I thought.
human company that sells to pets, and one thing that your viewers might not know is that there aren't standards in the pet industry.
There aren't. Yeah, we've
And
talked.
what's gonna happen over time is that the investment groups that are buying up veterinary hospitals, decreasing the level of care and increasing the rates and creating the same environment that they did for people, they're going to eventually influence the same scumbags in the FDA that they appointed to essential there it's an arm of big pharma. The FDA is, it just
Yeah.
prevents people like us from helping animals. So you have to become educated unless you want to be a mark for the rest of your life, and you have been. Sorry, it's we're black pillars. That's what we do. We're telling you, you've been suckered. And it's 2025. Get your shit in order and start taking responsibility and quit acting like a victim, because it's up to you. It's only you that has your responsibility, your best interest, your child, your pets at heart. That's it.
You mentioned earlier motherboard isn't your only product. You talked about zeolite. So I know you have the clinoptilite in the zeolite product that you have for detoxification. That's also, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I know one of the things that I've been talking to colleagues of mine in this space about is how we talk all the time about detoxing, but we never actually talk how and why, and it's a complex thing that, preparing your body for it for us, it can be complex if we're really severely inflamed and sick and full of toxins and we're not draining, but this is a really interesting, just like the motherboard application, to actually get this in our pets and ourselves. Can you tell me a little bit more about the detox product?
Yeah, we could talk about the detox product, or we could talk about the toxins themselves and the best threats, worst threats, I should say, the most important things that you need to pay attention to
Yeah.
protect you and your pets, and let my website teach people about the zeolite. I'll give you a quick answer. It is a it's good for chelating positively charged toxins out of the body, specifically heavy metals. It's a binder. Okay,
Mhm.
ours is naturally sourced. The other ones that I know on the market that are part of an MLM or other companies, because I do opposition research all the time, they're synthetic. Ours is not synthetic. It's naturally sourced, cleaned, filtered, micronized. That's why when you get ours, it appears like it has a little bit of a like a milky, like a watered down, diluted milky look to it, because that's the natural color of zeolite. We have an excellent source for it, in Switzerland. And but yeah, send your viewers to the website and they could learn about it. But one other thing I will say is that we get this is one of our most common questions. And Will Falconer talks about this. If you have a cat, and most people do, well, most people who have cats experience a form of CKD, and even some dog owners do. But this is the vaccine damage that accumulates, and if you adopted that cat, you're almost certainly going to get it. But it specifically helps them because it does the job of the kidneys that they can no longer do. It filters the toxins out. Without something like zeolite, that cat is just going to accumulate toxins. Okay, and we have people who are asking, is it safe? And I mean, I understand their concern, but they don't understand the science and the way it works. So that's why I said, send them to our website. There's all the information they need. They could reach out to us, ask us any questions that they have about zeolite and or their animals. I'm happy to help. But we should talk about what the greatest threats are, and I just wanted to put it in your lap to see if you wanted to do a follow-up or if you wanted to continue going on this episode.
Yeah, I think we're at 49 minutes. I think we're good for a little bit. I usually do about an hour. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you think the
Well,
greatest threats are. I mean, there's so many, but what are the biggest ones?
I think the 10 or 11 biggest ones. I'll mention the ones that we can glaze over the ones that are beaten to death on other interviews and on social media that pretty much everyone knows. And I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach with these. But, people have mentioned food. Of course, kibble, dry food, dehydrated, pre-cooked, all of it. People have this aversion to giving their pet raw, like, the majority of people do. Good pet owners understand the importance of a raw diet. They understand that, I mean, in recent history, people eat raw. It's cured a certain way, but people eat raw meat. I mean, Middle Eastern countries that eat kibbeh, they eat it raw. They could bake it after a day or so. But my point is, it's good. It gives your animals the prebiotics, the probiotics. I remember Dr. Falconer saying the single most important thing, aside from avoiding vaccines, that you can do for your animal is feeding a raw diet. It could add up to 2 to 3 years to that animal's life. Okay. And you have these people who just can't get out of their own way. And oh, well, I'll cook it. It's like, no, you understand your animal needs that raw meat, right? Like, that's why your animal's stomach is screwed up. Like I said before, it's easier to fool people than to convince them they're being fooled. Um, so you have food. We just mentioned vaccines. That's one of the biggest threats, 100%. And especially now, the mRNA that's out there, they're already giving it to people many times unknowing. That is part of the broken adoption policies that are out there. What people don't know, and this will be information, they don't know how filthy the shelter business is. So before we even get to adoptions or rescues, people need to understand that there are states and cities, big cities. You wonder why they'll take an animal in and perform a surgery on it. And you're like, oh, they got that animal off the street. First thing they do is vaccinate that animal.
Mhm.
Huge return on investment, okay, for them. They get paid for the intake. People have tried to deny it. I know better. Okay. So they get paid for the intake. Okay. Then they'll do a surgery on that animal. I pay attention very closely to a few shelters because I'm trying to get a few lazy politicians to earn their living and look into it because it's a completely corrupt system that pulls on the heartstrings of the average person who sees them online or on TV. Though I watched this one dog taken off the street. I mean, policy is to vaccinate it almost immediately and quarantine it. So imagine how scared that animal is. Amputated its leg. Okay. It wasn't 48 hours later they euthanized that animal. Now, why would you euthanize an animal when it's still traumatized from being in the version of a dog prison in isolation, amputated its arm, and then you euthanize it within 48 hours and they're paid for euthanasia?
Wow.
Okay. The kill shelters. Okay. And I know that you have these animal rescues out there who, they have their heart in the right place. They're trying to save animals. And I would love to see that. But then before that animal gets adopted, guess what happens? They make you vaccinate it again. So it could be within 6 months, a year, 3 months, 2 weeks. I don't know, whatever the arbitrary time is that animal goes from being, taken off the street or dropped off at a shelter to its new home. It could have gone through at least two of the same vaccine Then these people get the animals and they're wondering why they're chewing off their own skin. They're covered in hot spots. They have behavioral issues. They have autoimmune issues. They die from cancer at a premature age. And people wonder why. Okay. It's because we need term limits. Another very important and highly overlooked part of health. Shitty politicians who are greedy and do not have term limits and who are owned and manipulated like puppets by big pharma and their killer drugs. Okay. So you want to take back your health or your pet's health or fight back, elect new politicians because ours are failures. It's a broken system. They're part of it. Okay. Zero mercy for those people. Get them the hell out of office. Term limits now. That's a huge factor in human and pet health. They're the ones who shape adoption policies. They're the ones who wrote hospital protocols, killer protocols for COVID. They're the ones who did it. Okay. So you have term limits, you have adoption policies, which are broken. And some of the poor bastards that are working at these adoption centers and rescue places are just, they're bleeding hearts and they like animals. I'll never forget this. We were going to adopt an animal about 10 years ago. And this is when the dog I was telling you who died premature, he was sick. We didn't know he was dying at the time. But this place came and visited us at our home.
Mhm.
And they said, "Man, you're a great family, but I can't recommend adoption." And I said, "Oh, really?" I wanted to see what. I said, "Why?" Now this lady had no idea that I literally work in. So why is that? She said, "Well, you have a dog that is not spayed
Mhm.
or neutered." Sorry, it was neutered. And I said, "Yeah, that's my personal choice. I don't believe in it. It's terrible for their health. Why would I disrupt a young dog's endocrine system? Do you understand the body, the human body, the animal body is a system. It's not a disconnected, set of parts like killer allopathic medicine would teach you it is. Okay, where you go to a kidney doctor and you go to a heart doctor and you go to a pulmonologist and so pulmonology, nephrology, cardiology, neurology, all the interconnected parts that should be seen as one system. Killer allopathic medicine treats them as disconnected parts. I said, I'm not going to neuter my perfectly healthy dog for any reason. I said, secondly, why would that prevent an animal from coming into this home? Because we don't want to mate. And I said, well, of course we don't want to mate. But isn't your policy as part of adoption that animal's already been spayed? Well, yeah. So are we making sense here, lady? And she was, I mean, you knew it was going contentious, but I wanted it to. I wanted her to know how stupid she was for asking these questions because somebody has to start speaking up to these places that are knocking on your door and calling you on your phone and emailing you for your money. Okay. You want to play on people's heartstrings. You better have some answers why your policies suck because they do. All right. So you're going to come to my house, ask me why my perfectly intact animal is not neutered, even though yours is spayed. Okay. Secondly, that animal is sick and we're not sure what it is or was. So even if we were open to spaying or neutering an animal, now isn't the time to do it.
Yeah,
Okay. Anyway, I didn't want to change her mind. I just wanted her to see how foolish these policies were. So that's what I'm saying when it comes to adoption policies. They're stupid.
agreed. I'm glad we're talking about more in this space. We've started talking about early spay and neuter at all, and how damaging it is to our pet's health because, like you said, for the longest time, it has just been spay and neuter as early as possible, and
Well,
these
that's
dogs
a
are
fear
not.
campaign. They did that because they said it would extend your animal's life. So everybody's like, "Yeah, I want more." Guess what? You just cost that animal years of its life, and your crappy killer allopathic vet just got a nice paycheck for doing an easy surgery that just stole time from you and your animal. You fire a vet. If your vet recommended it, that's a vet you fire. That vet doesn't get your money because they already got enough of you and your animal's time. That is something that should be considered, and it is considered, iatrogenesis. And that is another threat. Iatrogenic medicine. Okay. You have a doctor who could have done something important with their lives. And instead, they became allopathic doctors. That's a human prescription pad. That's it. They don't look for the cause. They just throw a script at it because they're big pharma salespeople. That's it. So we covered vaccines, food, adoption policies, term limits for politicians,
Mhm.
and we even talked about how people need to take responsibility. They're part of it. They need to stop running to someone else for answers and start learning. Okay. We talked about influencers. Influencers, let me tell you something. Over the last 25 years, aside from the advent of social media, you had a rise in these fitness influencers, and they're full of false confidence. They go and work out in a CrossFit gym or in the gym. They might get nice results from working out. They're used to getting attention for it. They create an account for it. And they're like, well, you know what? I don't want people just to value me for my looks. Now I want them to think that I'm smarter and I know how to eat better. I know how to do this better. The reality is that is a major contributor to bad advice. If you have a fitness influencer who is seeing the trend towards holistic, quote unquote, holistic pet health, they're now trying to operate in that space. And these are some of the dumbest people on the internet. They're so stupid, they're dangerous. And anybody who's experienced bad advice probably doesn't know it yet because they
Mhm.
haven't. It's a kind of an emerging field because they don't trust their vet anymore and they're looking for answers. So they go to these people who they say, oh, well, that person's fit. Maybe they know about my animal. I've seen some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen written about animals or talked about by fitness influencers, by social media influencers, dangerous information. And I actually called somebody on it. I didn't put it on blast in public. They were talking about a detox without knowing what ingredients are dangerous to dogs. Because it's
Mhm.
not that are common, like avocados and chocolate, which is horse shit, by the way. They were recommending a detox that had yellow dock in it, and yellow dock is toxic to dogs. But I called them out on it and I said, hey, do you understand this? And obviously, they will probably like gulp. Holy crap, what did I just do? You cannot just assume that it's safe for animals. I mean, look, people overcomplicate animal health. It's far easier, and they overcomplicate their own health. It's we were born with everything we need, and the most important things that we can do for our health or our animals' health are free outside of raw food. Free. Okay. And when you have a fitness influencer giving you 10-cent advice, don't don't be surprised when it leads to worse problems. So influencers, and by the way, influencers are co-opting each other's information. There is a really good source out there, and I'm sure you know Bree from Taleswell. She's and she's a friend of mine, and she is very good.
Mhm.
And she's somebody who I would absolutely align my brand with, and she deserves it because she puts out top quality information, and I pay attention to the people trying to get into that space now, and you'll see that they're stealing her advice. They're
Mhm.
stealing advice from other people. I see it in the human space. There's a tai chi like lymphatic cleanse process that, you know, I saw an influencer do a couple of months back, and I just remembered it because there's a few movements that I do in the morning, and I'm like, "Oh, I do that. What is this guy trying to sell here?" And then I saw a woman doing it, the same exact exercises. Then I saw another one. It's funny because I counted about 9 people in the last month that have tried to pass this off as their own information instead of just saying, "Hey, this is Tai Chi, go check it out." Or, "Hey,
Mhm.
I got it from so and so," and just giving the right person credit for it. They're
Yeah.
trying to opted on their own because they need that dopamine hit. Okay. They need those clicks. They want that money. They want the views. Same thing's happening in the pet space. They're stealing good information from people who are well researched, well informed, and they're trying to pass it off as their own. And I could spot a fake from a mile away. I mean, I could literally name names, and it's really bad. So people need to understand social media could be a great source for information, but it could also be a dangerous place for the average person.
Mhm.
So we covered influencers. Can't reiterate how important the term limits are. Like the importance of term limits for politicians because I know we touched on that, but think about it from a perspective of big pharma, who's like, oh, so and so is a popular politician. So they give them money. They contribute to their next campaign. They make sure that person stays in office. And then, oh, that person wants to go from state rep to congressional rep. Even better. Let's invest in that. And oh, now they want to be a senator or a governor. Let's invest in that. That person is owned. You can go through and track their political campaign donations and find out exactly who is paying them. And I've done it. I've seen it. And I know that's why these people are making the decisions they're making. Not only are they uninformed, that's only a part of it. It's that they're corrupt. They sold us out to enrich themselves. And it's so easy to reverse engineer these payments. All you have to do is track, political donation trackers, and find your candidate, see who donated to them each election cycle. And a lot of times it's PACs that bundle money and try to hide these payments. You can just dissect them and say, what does this PAC do? Who do they bundle money from? But that's how you get active and how you become part of your own health and your own freedom. Okay. You got to get people out of office. But the things that we really need to pay attention to, because these are the things nobody's talking about. And I guarantee you they're going to hijack this information and pass it off as their own once I give it to you. And it's not like I invented these things. I learned them. I researched them over time. But nobody talks about. They want to tell you how food is going to be what kills you, and it's not. I mean, it's a force multiplier, the perfect combination of bad food, or in the instance of animals, kibble and vaccines. You have the vaccines that inject a perfect parasitic ecosystem into your animal with a food source being the heavy metals, because, parasites feed on heavy metals. That's why it's important to detox your animal or yourself, because that's what parasites feed on. They don't feed on good, they feed on bad, right? But my point is that with modern lifestyle, and this is good for people and animals, modern lifestyle has exceeded our evolutionary capabilities. And I want you to think about that. I'll repeat it. Modern lifestyle has exceeded our evolutionary capabilities. 2.5 million years ago, Homo habilis, the first human. Since then, we've had 2.5 million years to evolve to the stupid creatures we are today. All right. They knew better then what was good. So we had 2.5 million years to get to this point. And then for the last 50 or 60 years, technology has forced us to evolve at a rate that we just can't keep up with.
Mhm.
The most dangerous things to our health outside of the vaccine and mRNA platforms are two things that no one talks about outside of a few people on the corner of the internet. It's becoming more popular. And I'll give you a couple of sources that your viewers could really learn about from. But they are non-native EMFs and they are blue light toxicity. What are we doing right now?
We're staring at computer screens.
LED screens, blue lit by design.
Mhm.
This is a technology that they figured out about 100 years ago when they found Las Vegas. And they used blue lights in all their Las Vegas casinos and hotels, and they blacked out the sunlight from the outside. We weren't meant to live indoors. We weren't meant to be sedentary creatures. We were meant to operate in fresh air under natural light.
Mhm.
not isolated spectrums of light like that. How are we connected to the internet? Non-native EMFs, that's how we're connected to the internet. You're cooking your cells. You're cooking yourself literally like low-level radiation, okay? Like you do to food. You're cooking yourself from the inside out. That's what these things mean. So when people say, I'm dehydrated, I'm going to drink some water, that's not how that works. That's cellular dehydration, and that's not H2O, that's H3O. Got it? You don't just go to the store and buy some H3O. There's ways that you could replenish your cells, but I'm not going to give all of our answers here. I have an ebook coming out. And again, if your viewers go and sign up for the ebook, we'll give that to you for free. But it's modern lifestyle. Think about everything you do and then think about it when you were a kid. All right. Think about it before technology and streaming services.
Mhm.
I mean, let's make it in the wintertime because that's the really bad season. You're not outside under full spectrum light because it's if you're north of the 42nd parallel and you get winter, you're inside most of the time. I mean, there are some people who are active in winter sports and they're outside. They're getting full spectrum light and fresh air. They're away from, hopefully away from, non-native EMFs and cell phones and things, um, and cell phone towers. But nowadays, you could spend winter inside with very little discomfort. Well, relatively speaking, because
Yeah.
you're going to get sick from it.
Yeah.
You could stay in, put on a streaming service, and watch an entire series, over a weekend in front of your LED screen without full spectrum light, without fresh air, without grounding. Now think of your animal. Your animal is much more sensitive. Your animal uptakes nutrients and toxins at a much higher and faster rate than you do. I brought this conversation up to a vet once during an interview that she was doing with me. And she thought when I was referring to sunlight that I was referring to vitamin D3. And
Mm.
she said, thought she was informing me, well, dogs don't get their vitamin D through sunlight. I said, I'm not even going to go there because I'm going to embarrass this lady on her own podcast. She didn't even know what circadian principles and how they affected animals, why you need to see with your own eyes, your retinas, why you need to get outside and look at the sky and the natural light, and how those rays of light regulate your body's systems, the circadian rhythms. No one's talking about that. Your bullshit influencer vets that are out there, they're not talking about that. There's a guy who made a documentary about food. That's not what's making your dog die young. That's a force multiplier. Processed food, vaccines, working inside without grounding in front of LED screens, being radiated with your stupid Wi Fi router is what's killing your pets at about 30 to 40% shorter lifespan than they had. And if you, by the way, go and try to Google your animal's lifespan, that crappy search engine that is engineering answers for the betterment of the matrix or matrices, um, is going to tell you that animal lifespan has increased. And it 100% did not. It 100% decreased by about 30%. And that's because animals 100 years ago were outside all the time. They didn't take flea and tick treatments that were toxic. They didn't get vaccines. They ate scraps of food. They had purpose and they didn't get cooked by low level radiation from your Wi Fi, from your cell phone, or from your LED screen. They had active lives. Now animals are fat and lazy like their owners.
Mhm.
Those are your biggest threats to your animal's health. I own a company that does not sell supplements, it sells solutions. However, you will not find true health at the bottom of a bottle. It is lifestyle decisions, okay? And these decisions will make life for most people who are very soft, who want to stay really warm in the wintertime and stay in and watch TV and throw on their stupid Hallmark movies and make them feel good about themselves and whatever. That's the person who is going to have health problems. That's the person who is not circadianly aligned. That person is probably suffering from some form of sleep disorder that is impacting their insulin resistance, that is making them fatter, that is making them more miserable and unhealthy and inflamed. 100%. People don't want to hear it. They want to believe that they could live the life they want and there won't be consequences because they could go buy a supplement to fix it.
Mhm.
And the reality is, I'll say it again, the most important things you can do for your health are free.
I'm really glad that you brought all of that up, especially as somebody who does own a company that is selling products, regardless of how wonderful they are, which they are, because I think it's hard sometimes for people to separate the fact that they own a company and they are still trying to sell you products versus this is like reality. This is how we should be living more connected to nature. That is the
Yeah,
biggest
no,
problem.
you have to be connected to nature. People don't understand the importance of circadian rhythms. It regulates all the systems in your body, from your endocrine system to your nervous system to your detox. Okay. If you follow circadian principles, your body is self cleaning. We were given everything we needed. There's a woman online who does a lot of good things for health, for her animals' health, but she's had health issues. And she's talking about a supplement that has helped her. And I have a very keen eye and I'm very informed. And I told you I have not been stumped really by anyone when it comes to like, what are they doing? I look at things through a different lens. And what I notice is that when that person is in their home making videos, I see LED lighting. Know for a fact that it's Wi-Fi, and even if it wasn't, they're still under the LED lighting in their home. Their skin is pale, okay, and it's summertime. Okay, so they're in an area like you should be outside. You should have a good glow to your skin in the summertime. So their skin is pale. They're under fake light. They're using non-native EMFs, and I'm saying to myself, and they're slightly overweight, and I'm saying to myself, this person is out there giving advice, and they're ignoring the two biggest things that you could possibly have impact your lifestyle. If you see a fitness influencer who is pale, who tells you how to protect your skin in sunlight, if you see somebody who's wearing sunglasses or a hat to cover their eyes, if you're seeing someone who is in front of in a gym under neon or fluorescent LED lights, these are all people that you should be like unfollow, 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 unfollow because they're grossly misinformed and they're trying to convince you to buy what they're selling. They're trying to influence your thought, and these people don't even know enough to get out of those dangerous situations.
Yeah, I think so much of the messaging that when I do hear people talk about sunlight and circadian rhythm and unplugging your Wi-Fi router, doing all of those things, those people tend to be attacked as like, oh, they're just bro jock biohackers. They don't listen to these people kinds of, which is an attack from the bigger, as you said, the pharmaceutical complex, the all of the things, but it is few and far between where you find people like this that are even talking about it, and
Well,
nobody's
watch.
really
After this
talking about it.
podcast airs, you're gonna see everybody steal that information and pass it off as their own, and they're gonna tell you to, make sure you pay attention. That's why we're not e there's more that we can disclose, but we're not gonna get into it, okay? Because I have to preserve some type of information as our own, because people don't ever just tell the truth and say, "Hey, this is where I learned it. This is where you should go and learn it." If you want to learn about the benefits of sunlight, you want to go and follow somebody like neurosurgeon Jack Cruz online. Or if you want to learn about circadian rhythms, circadian biology, Zaid Dahaj is a great source online. He's very informed on heliotherapy, quantum biology. My son and I are taking a course in quantum biology. We study it. So it's very important. I mean, these are things that were offered in hospitals as treatments. These are things that people who know how to use them are incredibly healing. Anybody who is an influencer that you see wearing a smartwatch or any that offers any type of any device that offers biofeedback, like those rings that people are wearing, unfollow, unfollow, unfollow. No business giving advice. If that's the person that you're looking to for information, they have no business giving advice. Okay. If they don't understand how that disrupts their frequency, their biology, they should not be giving health advice. If you have somebody promising you the moon and the sun in a bottle, unfollow. Okay. I see it. They're like the sham wow guy.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, all your problems are, take this." Listen, the biggest scams in the industry are powders, okay, or multivitamins, green drinks, total scam. The multivitamin is total scam. There are really good ways to get a beat on your health and your dog's health. It's not at the bottom of a bottle, and it's definitely not in a killer allopathic veterinarian or physician's office.
That was a lot. That was great information, though. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, as you can
Appreciate
tell, we're not in this for making friends, and we
Yeah.
certainly didn't do ourselves any favors, and that's just fine by me because I'm here to do something and let the bridges I burn light the way.
Well, I appreciate I mean, these are honestly everything you have brought up, with the exception, I will say, of the adoption process, at the shelters, I know has been talked about on this podcast before, and it can be difficult to try to make that information palatable for people, though I very much appreciate how bold you are about it.
Yeah, I'm not you know what? I learned long ago, you just need to say it. People dance around topics and they go along to get along. And I COVID was it. It burned like it that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Okay? When you have imbeciles that have no business talking about health. I mean, your average person at the grocery store trying to tell you about science. I'm like, you know what? People don't want your information. I don't want to give it to the people who don't want it. I'm here to give it to the person who wants to employ that information. Okay. You're going to have these vet profiteers that are out there who are going to either steal my information or try to paint that as incorrect or pseudoscience. This is the problem. It's a war for people's brain. I don't care if people don't come and buy my product. I know what they're worth. I know what they can do. And anybody who uses them or understands basic science would know their benefits. I'm not here to hard sell anybody on that. I'm here to tell people who want to listen. That's the point of the conversation. Too many times people get on podcasts and do it to promote their brand. And that's why I said, hey, look, we could talk about my stuff, but why not just go to my website? It's not because I don't want to tell you. I don't want to eat up your time when I can give people valuable information they're not going to hear from anybody else. Anybody else. And you watch and see over the next couple of weeks and months how many people have viewed your video and didn't give you a like, and then steal the information we talked about today and pass it off as their own.
Well, that definitely happened.
It
Definitely
happens
happened.
too common, and, by the way, if people think that they can go sit by the window or sit in a sunroom in the wintertime or in the summertime and get the same benefit, you can't. It's actually as dangerous as not getting sunlight at all, okay? So don't if you have a pet, that, "Oh, we're not gonna go outside, let's let it in the window, it's sunny, warm day," it does more damage than you can imagine
Mm.
because it isolates spectrums of light.
That I actually saw something about that not too long ago because they were using, a truck driver as, like, an
Yeah.
example of why.
That's like the famous yeah, and everybody was saying, "Look at what happens, the side with the sun." It's like, "No, that's the low E glass. That's the glass that filters out the full spectrum of light." And so that's the danger that you're seeing right there of
Right.
filtering out light. That's why it's not just skin, it's how it impacts your endocrine system and everything else that goes along with the benefits of sunlight and quantum biology. It will have a negative impact on you and your animal. So get your animal outside, get grounding in, get the sunlight in, and it'll benefit you. That's the benefit of having an animal. And if you're a person who lives in an apartment building, good luck.
Yeah, well, it is,
Get
and
out.
They
Get out.
show that the people that own dogs because they're walking and when they're walking their dogs and they're outside more, that their lifespan is improved, for
Well,
sure.
yeah, your life is absolutely going to be improved. Your lifestyle is going to be improved and cleaned up, but your animals too. But if you live in an apartment or a condo, that's another thing. Because imagine now how many Wi-Fi routers are in that building. How many forms of dirty electricity are in that building? It is a nightmare for your health. Get out.
Yeah. Oof. Goodness. Well, I know just based on this conversation, I'm so looking forward to that ebook that you're coming out with. I guess you're rewriting it, updating it. That's going to be
Yeah,
coming out.
updating it because, we launched it a few years ago and, at the time it was a small company.
Mhm.
We take on a lot of responsibilities with our team and we were spread thin. I just wanted to get something out there to give to people. So I pulled it back because I wanted to update it and improve the information. And now we have the time. So we're thinking around the new year that it'll be done. But people who bought it before and anybody on our list is going to get it.
That's awesome. And that will be in the show notes. So as you're listening to this, you can just pull it up on your podcast app and click the link in the show notes and go directly there, sign up for the newsletter. I know, like, I will say they're not one of these companies that sends you an email every day. It's not going to happen.
No, no, maybe one a month, maybe. And we haven't even done that.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
We don't do that. We just we grow organically and we don't want to be that company that sends more than one a month. We don't do, sales and things. Our product is a very high quality product. It takes a lot that goes into it. If you're buying from a company that has a Black Friday sale, it's because they could probably afford to give you that price all year round. That's the behind the scenes industry secret. If you're getting a Black Friday deal from your company, they could give you that price all year round, or they're blowing out inventory that's close to expiration.
Yeah.
That's the reason you get salespeople.
That's very true. Very true. Jason, thank you so very much for being here. I know obviously you have socials if people want to go and follow you, but the best way I think is just go look at the website, read the information on the website, sign up for the newsletter so that you get that ebook when it comes out. I know I'm really looking forward to it, especially after this conversation, because I just appreciate how direct you are with the information that is so important for us and for our pets, especially today. Like it's I think we're at that that point where if you don't do something right now, it's going to be too late very soon.
Yeah, it's let's just I'm hopeful that we could I'm maintaining hope. Let me say that. I'm maintaining hope. I want to see what RFK is going to do.
Mhm.
I'm not thrilled with what I see so far, but I'd like to see over the next few years what takes place because I am hopeful. But at the same time, I see what's coming, in the form of the corporatization of animal health.
Mhm.
When people ask me what I do, I say I avoid it at all costs. When people say, well, like the tough decisions, well, I had to get my animal vaccinated because I'm going on vacation and I need to drop it off. You know what I say? Well, fuck it. I'm just not going to travel because I made a commitment and I don't want somebody taking care of my animal. I put them, they're my fam. I'm not going to leave them behind. So it's a personal decision just like the one they make, and if you wanna put your animal in that situation where you're going to unnecessarily vaccinate an animals because you want to comply with, some bullshit government rule that's out there, just then I don't know what to tell you. Your priorities are out of whack. Um but yeah, we're gonna have a new website. I don't know when this podcast airs, but I would say sometime by Thanksgiving we're gonna have a new website, and then by the holiday season we'll have that ebook out. But anybody who has any questions can always reach out to us. Supportive Vengeance, and that's on the website. And we're gonna give your viewers a code to use for checkout if they decide to buy any products. PPR. So, Kyle, what's the code? PPR 10.
Perfect. I love it. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Well, thank Kyle. He's the one who comes in and helps us put all this stuff together, and he's the one who programs that code. So that's for all of your listeners. So thank you for having us today. And anytime you want to do it again, anytime you want to piss the right people off, just give me a call because I know how to push buttons.
I appreciate it, Jason,
Yeah,
especially
sure.
after things that have happened this year. I'm like, I don't want to hold back anymore. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate the incredible product that you're putting out, and we'll
There is
definitely.
nothing like that
No,
product
there isn't.
on earth for human or animals.
Mhm.
Okay, if you're traveling or if your animal is suffering autoimmune or cancer, you need motherboard. That's what you need. You need motherboard and you need to get the hell outside. Fresh air. Cut your Wi-Fi, hardwire everything.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. Absolutely agree. Thank you so
Eat
very much
raw.
for being yeah.
Fire your vet. Fire your vet. Find a homeopathic vet. Force your vet to go back to school to learn something that could help people. And don't listen to the influencer vets. They're after this. I would name names, but I don't want to put you in that situation. They know
Oh,
who they are. They know damn well not to reach out to me.
yeah. No, I thank you for saying all of that and for putting that in people's minds because that oftentimes is like we have to have that catalyst because something will happen. They'll hear this podcast and who knows, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, something will happen and they'll be like, I remember hearing and it's gonna trigger something. And so it's important. Thank you.
Yeah, anybody who has questions, anybody who gets shitty advice from their vet and they want to run it by, send it into our email. Be happy to pick their crappy arguments apart.
Love it. Love it. Well, Jason, thank you again so very much for being here. Guys, check out Vengeance. Venjenz is how you spell that. Or you can just go into the show notes and click the link. With that, I'm going to say give your pets some extra love from me and Jason this week, and I will talk to you next week.